You've sat in that salon chair, pointed at a photo, and walked out feeling like something still wasn't right. Maybe it looked fine, but fine isn't what you came for. Imagine discovering the 5 haircuts that genuinely turn back the clock. Cuts that frame your face, lift your features, and make people quietly wonder what your secret is. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes and youth-boosting fixes for mature women so you get simple, proven transformations that work instantly. Today we're perfecting haircuts for women over 50, and by part 3, you'll want to pause and look in the mirror. I mean it. We're covering 5 cuts that stylists recommend, 5 you should retire, and the exact swaps that change everything. And the very first cut? It's the one most women over 50 are still getting, and it's quietly adding years. Let's go. Part 1. The blunt bob that actually works. Have you ever walked out of a salon feeling like your face somehow looked heavier than when you walked in? That is not your imagination. And it is not your face. It is the cut. So many women over 50 reach for the bob, and they are right to. The bob is one of the most powerful cuts a mature woman can wear. But here is what nobody tells you at the consultation. Not all bobs are equal, and the wrong one does something very specific to your face. It pulls the eye downward. It frames the jaw instead of the cheekbones. And the moment that happens, the whole face reads older. This one is everything. The blunt one-length bob, cut perfectly level, tends to sit right at the jaw, which is exactly where most women over 50 do not want the visual weight. It creates a shelf of hair that draws attention to any softening along the jawline, instead of lifting the eye upward toward your bone structure. What actually works is the textured bob. Same length concept, but with soft internal layers and a slightly longer front that grazes the jaw at an angle. That diagonal line is doing something remarkable for your face. It pulls the eye up and forward. It softens the jaw while drawing attention to your cheekbones and eyes. Honestly, this is the swap I wish someone had whispered to me years ago. If you are still wearing a perfectly blunt horizontal bob, swap it for a textured angled version. The difference in how your face reads is immediate. Your colorist can add face framing highlights around the front pieces of this cut to amplify the lift even further. That small addition makes the whole style feel intentional and radiant. Keep the texture refreshed every 6 to 8 weeks. This cut loses its shape quickly, and a shapeless bob reads older than almost anything else. This is the one that made a close friend of mine stop mid-conversation and quietly ask what had changed about my face. There is one more thing about this cut that most women completely overlook, and it has nothing to do with the length. We're getting to it in part 2, and it changes everything about how this style ages you. Part 2. The soft layered lobe-length cut. You have probably seen women your age who just look effortlessly polished. Hair that moves, catches the light, and somehow makes their entire face look more awake. There is a reason for that, and it is not luck. The lobe-length layered cut is one of the most consistently flattering haircuts for women over 50, and it is wildly underused. It hits at the earlobe or just below, that sweet spot where hair does not compete with the neckline but still provides enough length to soften the face. When it has soft layers built through the interior, something almost architectural happens. The layers create movement. Movement creates light, and light on hair near the face is youth. Yes. That's simple. Here is the key insight most stylists skip. Women over 50 often lose natural hair movement as texture changes. Fine, flat hair pressed against the face reads heavy. That heaviness pulls the face down visually. Soft internal layers through a lobe-length cut restore the bounce and volume that lifts the entire upper face, without adding bulk at the sides. If you are wearing a flat one-length cut that sits at or below the chin with no internal layers, swap it for a lobe-length version with soft layers from the cheekbone down. Your face will look noticeably more lifted and alive within the first styling. There is one technique your stylist can add to this cut that changes how your entire face reads in photographs. And it takes approximately 4 minutes to do at every appointment. That technique is soft disconnected layers at the crown, where the hair at the top of your head is cut just slightly shorter than what falls around the face. This creates invisible volume at the crown that the eye reads as a taller, longer face shape. Longer face shape equals younger face shape. Every time. Ask your stylist specifically for point cutting at the ends rather than blunt scissor cuts. Point cutting breaks up the edge of the hair, so it moves and catches light. A blunt edge on fine hair sits flat and reads heavy. Maintain this cut every 7 to 8 weeks. The low-length layered cut loses its lift fastest at the crown, and that lost lift is the first thing that ages you. This is the cut that made one of my closest friends look genuinely 10 years younger, and she thought it was something else entirely. She had no idea it was just this. In part 3, we are talking about the one cut that almost every woman over 50 gets at some point, and the single reason it works against you when your hair starts to thin. Part 3, the pixie cut done right. The pixie cut has a complicated reputation. Women either adore it completely or feel terrified of it. And honestly, both reactions make sense, because a pixie cut done well is one of the most striking, youthful, and elegant cuts a woman over 50 can wear. But a pixie cut done wrong adds years in a way that is almost impossible to fix without growing it out. Here is what goes wrong. The classic short pixie, cropped close on the sides and back, flat on the top, removes volume from exactly the places a mature face needs it most. It exposes the temples. It draws attention to any softening at the jaw. And without weight or movement near the face, your natural bone structure has nothing to work with. That is what is aging you. Not the length, the shape. The version that works is the textured pixie with volume, longer on the top, with deliberate height and texture built through the crown and front. That crown height creates the same visual lengthening effect as the layered lobe-length cut. It makes the face read longer, more defined, more awake. Honestly, the right pixie is one of the most powerful tools in a mature woman's style arsenal. And most women never discover it because they stop at the first version. If you are wearing a flat close-cropped pixie with no volume at the top, swap it for a textured version with at least 2 inches of length at the crown styled with soft upward movement. The transformation is remarkable. There is one specific technique that makes this cut look polished rather than merely short. It is the way the nape is finished, tapered softly rather than hard-clippered. A hard line at the nape looks severe. A soft taper disappears into the neck and reads as elegant from every angle. Ask your stylist for a soft tapered nape finish every single time. This is the detail that separates a pixie that photographs beautifully from one that does not. Style this cut with a light hold texturizing cream applied only at the crown. Avoid heavy gels or waxes. They flatten the crown volume that is doing all the youth lifting work. This is the tip that stops people in their tracks. One woman I know switched to this exact version and had 3 people ask if she had done something to her face. She had not touched her face. Part 4 is where we talk about the cut that looks effortless but is actually engineered, and the single placement detail that determines whether it ages you or transforms you completely. Part 4, the French-inspired midi cut. There is a cut that has been quietly circulating among the most elegantly dressed women in Paris, Milan, and New York for the past several years, and most women over 50 have never heard it described by name. It is the French midi cut. And it is exactly what your face has been waiting for. The French midi sits between the collarbone and the shoulder. Longer than a bob, shorter than fully long hair. That length alone is not the magic. The magic is in the layers. Specifically, soft curtain layers that begin at the cheekbone and frame the face in a way that is almost architectural. Those curtain layers are doing something your face needs urgently after 50. As faces mature, the visual weight shifts downward. The cheeks soften slightly. The jawline changes. The forehead appears smaller in proportion. Curtain layers placed from the cheekbone down act as natural parentheses around the upper face. They redirect the eye toward your eyes, your cheekbones, and the most beautiful part of your natural bone structure. This is the one that made a friend of mine tear up in the salon. She had not seen herself look like that in years. If you are wearing hair that falls uniformly without any face framing layers, swap it for a midi length with curtain layers that begin at the cheekbone. Your stylist can add them to existing length without a full cut. Here is the placement detail that determines everything. The curtain layers must begin at the cheekbone, not the jaw, not the chin, not the temple. Cheekbone. That is the exact point where the frame begins to lift the eye upward. Too low and the eye drops. Too high and the frame disappears. Ask your stylist to part your curtain layers slightly off-center rather than perfectly central. An off-center part creates subtle asymmetry that reads as effortlessly chic. And asymmetry always photographs younger than perfect symmetry. Maintain this cut every 8 to 10 weeks. The curtain layers are the first thing that loses their shape as the hair grows, and shapeless curtain layers defeat the entire purpose of the cut. Use a wide tooth comb after washing rather than a fine brush. It preserves the soft separation of the curtain layers instead of blending them into the rest of the hair. You needed to hear this. Most women have no idea this placement detail is what the whole cut depends on. Part 5 is the cut that every stylist talks about behind closed doors as the single most universally flattering option for women over 50, and the reason most women never try it will genuinely surprise you. Part 5, the volume lift shag. Most women over 50 hear the word shag and immediately picture something wild, youthful, and completely wrong for them. That reaction is exactly why this cut is one of the most underused secrets in mature women's hair. Because the modern shag, restyled and refined for women over 50, is nothing like the rock and roll image your mind just conjured. It is soft, it is structured, and it does something for thinning hair that almost no other cut can match. Here is the truth your stylist may not have offered you yet. Fine, thinning hair wears most cuts brutally. Blunt cuts expose thinness at the ends. Long heavy lengths pull volume flat at the crown. But the modern shag is built on removing weight. Strategically, specifically, so the hair that remains stands up, bounces, and catches light. Your bone structure was always this stunning. This cut is what finally lets it show. The modern shag for mature women features soft curtain-style face framing, feathered layers through the mid-lengths, and a slightly shorter crown layer that creates instant volume at the top of the head. That crown volume is everything. It gives the face vertical lift. Vertical lift reads as youth. If you are wearing your fine hair in a single-length style that lies flat and lifeless by midday, swap it for a modern shag with feathered layers starting at the cheekbone. The difference in volume is visible immediately, even without any product. Here is the one thing most women miss about this cut. The ends must be point cut and lightly feathered, never blunt. Blunt ends on fine hair add visual weight and lie flat. Feathered ends move. Moving ends catch light. Light-catching hair near the face is the single most effective youth signal in any haircut. Ask your stylist for razor cut or point cut ends only on this style. Scissors over comb blunt work will flatten this cut within days. The technique is everything. Maintain the shag every 6 to 7 weeks. Of all 5 cuts covered today, this one grows out fastest, and a grown-out shag loses its lift and movement completely. This is the tip that genuinely changed how one viewer described her own hair for the first time in years. She said it was the first time her hair looked intentional. Use a volumizing mousse applied to damp roots only before diffusing. That root application is what the crown volume depends on. And it is the single difference between a shag that performs and one that simply sits there. You have just discovered something most women spend years circling around without ever landing on. Your beautiful eyes, your natural elegance, and your bone structure have always deserved exactly this kind of cut. Now you know exactly which one to ask for. You just learned 5 haircuts that most women over 50 spend years searching for, and today you discovered all of them in one sitting. You didn't just watch a video. You changed how you'll look at your next salon appointment. The textured bob, the layered lobe-length cut, the volume crown pixie, the French midi with curtain layers, and the modern shag. Each one was chosen specifically for what it does for your face, your bone structure, and your natural elegance. These cuts work because they are engineered around how a mature face reads light, volume, and proportion. Tell me, which of these 5 haircuts are you most excited to try? And which one were you wearing without realizing it was adding years? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Next time, we are tackling the one makeup mistake that silently ages your eyes. And most women are making it every single morning without knowing. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I will see you in the next one.